So when I threw this on, I wanted to watch something a little more music themed. I was feeling like I wanted to watch something related to music, and this has been on my list of movies to watch on my Netflix queue for quite a while. So this is the movie Frank from 2014, and other than just wanting to watch something that had music as a theme, that also stars like two of my probably favorite working actors at the moment. Michael Fassbender, of course, is a great actor, and then also Domhnall Gleeson. I don't think he's as well known, which is unfortunate. He's a really good actor. He's been in a ton of stuff, but I think I don't know if he'll ever be like a leading actor, but it'd be nice if he could be. But he's like a great supporting actor, and he's just I mean just in the last couple of years he's been in. He was in The Revenant, the new Star Wars, Force Awakens, Ex Machina. Uh, I mean, he was in Dread. I just watched that again the other day. So he's really good. He's in a lot of stuff. Um, but anyways, so let's see, this is directed by Lenny Abramson. I haven't seen any of his movies other than this. After this movie, he just did the movie Room, which Brie Larson won an Oscar for. It's about her and her little son, he was born being held hostage, and then they eventually get out. I haven't seen that yet. It's supposed to be really good. I'm sure it is. It's kind of one I have to be like in the right mood to watch because I'm sure it's pretty sad too. But that's obviously like a really good movie. It was nominated for some Oscars. So he did that after this movie. But this follows. We start with John Burroughs is the main character. That's Domhnall Gleeson's character. He's like a musician, or he wants to be a musician. Don't really know how successful he is with his music, because right away he's just kind of. It starts out really funny. He's walking around trying to write songs, and then he happens upon the beach and sees a guy just kind of going crazy in the water, and the guy's standing there and says, "Oh, that was our keyboard player." John's like, "I play keyboards," and he's like, "We'll need someone to replace him tonight at a gig," and he's like, "Show up here at this time." So he comes, and that's when he meets the rest of the band. The guy he's talking to is Don. It's Scoot McNairy. He's a pretty well-known character actor as well. He's their manager and also in the band. And then a couple other characters. Clara is played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, and then the main guy is, of course, Frank, and he's played by Michael Fassbender. But Frank wears this giant paper mache head, and that's like, of course, what John's focusing on when he meets the rest of the band. And they start playing, and then something goes wrong. They freak out and leave, and just kind of walk out of the gig, and then just leave John there. And he's like, "Okay, what just happened?" But they end up calling him later to come play another gig with them. And when he meets up with them, they pick him up, and they're just driving for a long time. And he's like, "Where's this gig?" And they take him to a cabin just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and they're gonna be recording an album. And he didn't know that, but they get really into it. And so most of the movie's about, they're trying to write this record, and John's just really curious as to why Frank is just always wearing this paper mache head, and he's trying to get to know him a little better, and he slowly gets like more into the dynamic and the chemistry of the rest of the group. They kind of start to accept him. It's really funny. It starts out super funny, and it's really funny when he starts hanging out with Frank a bit more, and because he's wearing this big paper mache head, he's like, "I don't know if you're being serious or if you're joking around," and he's like, "Would it help if I told you my expressions?" And so like, Frank will say something. He's like, "Happy smile," or he's like, "Sly grin," and he's like saying all his expressions. And then Clara doesn't really like that. It's funny though. And then after that, like seems like they're gonna get closer to finishing their album, and John's been kind of recording stuff on his phone, recording video, and been uploading it to YouTube. And he thinks they have like this big following, and they get invited to come to South by Southwest. At the beginning, they're over in Europe somewhere. I can't remember where it is, UK somewhere. But they get invited to South by Southwest, and John really wants them to go. He thinks they have like a big fan base there, But Claire and the rest of the band, they're really hesitant. They don't think they'll be accepted. They think it's the wrong move, and they're kind of protective of Frank. I know Claire is. They just don't want to expose them, but then John thinks that they're just holding him back, and that they're just gonna that Claire is kind of jealous of Frank and his ability. And so they go to South by Southwest, and a couple things happen that break up the band, and I don't know if I want to like tell the whole story, but yeah, a couple things happen that are unfortunate, and John has to kind of do his best to get the rest of the band together. And so yeah, it starts out really funny. It's really like quirky, and I didn't really know where it was going. Like, is this gonna be just the tone of the movie? But then about halfway through, or maybe a little earlier, it gets into some pretty dark comedy. It's still funny, but some of the jokes are at things that maybe shouldn't be laughed at as much. So that's like where the dark humor comes in. But then there's also like a big kind of look into psychological issues, like kind of the reasons why Frank is wearing this head, and what, like, John just wants to find something that was wrong with him, and why he's wearing this head to cover himself up, and gets into some other people's mental issues and their psychological issues. Then, especially towards the end, it gets into that a lot and kind of answers it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then, yeah, it's very, very different. I don't know. It's pretty funny at parts. And then there's like a part where John just kind of misunderstands the social media that he's using, like uploading their videos to YouTube, and he thinks there's like a big following, and then it's kind of disastrous at South by Southwest. It's like, I think I kind of want to watch it again to see if I'm missing some things that are being discussed, or kind of the overtones of the movie. I think it's a pretty interesting look at a band, but at the same time, I don't know if it's like a super accurate portrayal of what a band dynamic is, or is this like kind of unique to them in this movie. It's also kind of interesting because the Frank character is based on a real character from a British comedian. The comedian's name was Chris Seavey, and he created the character. His name's was Frank Sidebottom. That's pretty much the exact same look to that paper mache head, and he did like do music. I don't really know the history of that character or that comedian at all. I looked into it a little bit, and I think usually it was like more of a comedic act, and he had like a little puppet with him too, like a little Frank puppet. So I'm not sure like if this is supposed to be a kind of an homage to him. It seems like it might be. Maybe that guy had like mental issues. I really don't know, but it's interesting that there's that parallel. So maybe if you do know who that Frank Sidebottom character is, it's a little more interesting. Who knows? But I still kind of liked it. I'm giving it like a 3.75 out of 5. I think I might watch it again just to kind of see if there's a little more meaning going on that I might have just kind of overlooked on this first viewing. But a couple movie connections that I quickly had, I guess, were like Inside Llewyn Davis. But that's a serious movie, but also pretty funny. This is similar, as some really funny. I mean, I was cracking up at some points in this movie, but then it gets a little more darker and serious. And then maybe something like Whiplash as well. It's like a very, very different movie. That's like a very serious look at how intensely you might have to drive to be a really good drummer. But there's also like an interesting and unique look at a different style of band, or what it takes to be in a band. And also, I think there's some of the things that issues that they're getting at is with this movie, Frank, is how good Frank is as a musician. Especially John realized that. Everybody else, I think they kind of realize how unique of a talent he is, and he can do some really good musical things. And everybody else just wants to kind of match up to him, or they just think maybe they do have a good song that they're writing and they're just getting overlooked. So there's like a dynamic between that as well. It's pretty interesting. So, okay. I think it's getting kind of long video, so I'll cut it short there. Again, give this one 3.75 out of 5.